Hello and welcome to Mindful Conversations. I'm Tanya Otterstein-Liehs, self-empowering self-care coach and certified fitness professional. And as you know, my Mindful Conversation podcast is all about helping you to empower yourself, for you to realize that you are important, to make a vital part of your life your self-care, self-love. Because, you know, we as women give our time away, but we need to validate who we are. So all the guests I have help to broaden that message and for you to realize that, yes, I'm a woman, I'm important, I'm moving forward. So my guest today is Katie Kahvo, and I met Katie quite a long time ago, going back to when I was just a fitness professional, worked at a studio, and Katie happened to be a member. So this is going way back when. And our lives have crossed throughout the years, either at, seeing each other at different conferences, or seeing each other out in the social media world. And Katie has really vital messages to share. And, I've been following her for a while, and it's like, yeah, I need her to come on and share her messages as well. So as far as Katie, she's a life coach for entrepreneurial moms. And she's basically taking that chaos that's in your life, moms, and creating calm, and we'll call it a balance. For everybody, of course, we know a balance is different. So Katie, thank you and welcome. And I'm wonderfully happy that you're here today.
Thank you so much. It's interesting how long we've actually known each other and how our paths have crossed. So this is great to be here. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So I've done a brief introduction, Katie. And can you let our listeners or audience know a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, so I do have a background in community health sciences. I've done culinary management. I also am trained as a holistic nutritionist. So I have a very wellness-focused education, and I switched over into life coaching because this is where I found so many of the women that I talked to. These were really the core issues, and this is where all of our conversations kept going. So I took what I learned from wellness and coaching, and I shifted it over this way a little bit. So I now do life coaching for mom entrepreneurs, and through various strategies and mindset shifts, I really help them to find success, but without the hustle. So we work on things like finding clarity, simplifying a lot that's generally going on in their lives, and building the confidence to move forward in that. And I have two small children of my own. I have a 4-year-old and an 8-month-old. So I totally get what it's like to try and run a business with kids, and kids at home now too, especially.
Yeah. And I really like how you said, because it's something I strongly believe in too, is about simplifying things, right? Because when we simplify things, then that chaos becomes easier to deal with, because you're not trying to take on all these to-do things, all these tasks, but instead break it down. It's like, okay, I'm going to deal with this. I'm going to simplify it and become less stressed. So I really like how you take that same idea, that same strength, because then it's what I call doable. Then it becomes more relatable to women when they see, oh yeah, I guess I can break this down, right? And then I can fit my self-care and I won't feel so overwhelmed. And going forward with that, what is a message that you really want to share with women about simplifying life, about taking that self-care and making it part of your lifestyle?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that I want women to know that they can have it all, and that you can have it all, but the key is that you can't do it all. So asking for and receiving help is really, really essential in that process. And I also want them to know that they're totally worthy of their big dreams, and that they can really have anything that they want.
Mm-hmm. And do you sometimes hear, because when I speak to women, sometimes they'll hear the word sacrifice.
Mhm.
I have to make all these sacrifices. I'm making all these sacrifices. And like that word is just jumping out. And, it's like, it's not about sacrifices. And what I'm hearing from you as well, it's not about sacrifices. It's you have a choice. Give yourself permission to make a choice.
Yeah, I think with every choice you're making a sacrifice. I mean, to a degree it is about making a sacrifice, but exactly, you have the choice. You are in control and you have, the power, and you should be feeling empowered that you get to make that choice. So although you're making a sacrifice, you're still making the choice to do what it is that you feel is most valuable and most important to you. And I think that's really where our work comes in, is to show you and to give you clarity on what sacrifices sit okay with you and that you can, be okay with, and which are not, and what are non-negotiable things in your life that you can, feel a lot better about and move forward with.
And then, when you said non-negotiable, you
Mm-hmm.
agree too that self-care is non-negotiable. It needs to happen.
Yes, I think like self-care is a tricky one. There was a conversation in my group a few weeks ago about self-care,
Uh-huh.
because it is something that's wonderful, and I think that it just depends on how you define it and what your perspective is, and kind of how you approach self-care, because I do think that we do need to be caring for ourselves, but I think it's important, like the conversation that we had earlier, that it's not something that, especially as moms, that we come out of as this feeling of, oh, it's just another thing that I'm failing at. Right?
Yeah.
It's just another to do. It needs to be this thing where when we can take care of ourselves and participate in something that brings us joy, that we're really fueling ourselves and we're impacting all those around us. So personally, I define self-care as doing something intentionally that feels good. So that doesn't mean that you need to go and do it by yourself. That doesn't mean a bubble bath. It can mean those things, absolutely. I think it's just in all how works practically for yourself. I mean, for me, self-care often is having a dance party with my kids. Like we do it together, right? So, self-care, if you don't like, I once worked with a client who hated going for bike rides and swimming with their kids because it just kind of stressed her out to have to, like, she had a lot of kids, and to have to take care of them all and ensure their safety, like that's a large load sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And I said, stop doing that then. Like,
Yeah.
let your husband or somebody else do those things,
Yeah.
and you find what works for you with your
Exactly.
kids, if that's what it means. So I think I'm going to get off on a huge tangent if I keep talking about that, but yes,
So,
I do think self-care is important.
yeah. So, what I'm hearing then from you, Katie, is that, we both agree that self-care doesn't need to be what someone else is doing because you think that's what you have to do. It's about what works for me, where I'm taking care of myself, whether that's with your kids or not. I as everyone knows, my kids are older now, but I feel, and what I'm hearing from you too, is that self-care, you still need to make time just for you, right? So whether that's 5 minutes, just sitting quiet and catching your breath, whether that's, a quick walk around the block, whether that's just, going to read a book, but anything where you're raising this joy inside and it makes you shine and feel happy. And it's like, wow, that felt good. I'm like invigorated and I'm happy with myself, because let's be honest, when we do not bring happiness to ourselves, it shows on the inside and on
Absolutely.
the outside, right? But when we fulfill ourselves with things that lift us up, well, then things that potentially could be not so great doesn't seem that great, not a big thing after all.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think the self-care can also come in the form of just compassion for ourselves, and feeling the emotions. And I think a huge part of my self-care regime is therapy. And I think it's important. I think everyone can benefit from it. And it doesn't necessarily mean that I have something major going on that I want to go for. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's just a check-in, and just to say, like, hey, like, how are things going? And can we talk about a couple of things that came up in the last month or so? It really, I don't believe in giving my clients things that don't work practically for themselves or don't fit right or feel right to them, because it's not going to happen then. The change isn't going to happen. And when you can incorporate things like self-care in a way that is practical for you and that is sustainable, then that's really when you're going to get the big change. And that's really when you're going to feel that empowerment and that confidence and start feeling so much better about yourself,
Yeah.
and therefore everyone else is impacted and can benefit as well.
Yeah. And it's interesting how you mentioned, asking myself how I am, because it's
Yeah.
something I've talked about all the time, is how many times do we ask other people or other women, how are you? Right? But do we take the time and ask ourselves, how am I feeling today? What brought on this feeling that I'm experiencing now? So,
Mhm.
it was really interesting that you mentioned is just, that self, like looking at myself and asking, okay, how am I feeling today? So that was really interesting that you
Yeah.
brought that up, and of course with life, and I have to mention is COVID-19, because we're in it now. It's end of May. We're going to be heading into June. COVID-19 is not going anywhere right now. So, what's something you've been doing since from this COVID-19? Because, a lot of people face fear, anxiety. They were good with being at home, but now they're kind of starting to struggle. So, what have you been doing, and what kind of advice that you can share with others, Katie, about COVID-19? What works for you? And, what kind of advice can you share for other people to help them deal with their emotions that they're feeling?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's it's one of those things where it's individual and it's also collective.
Yeah.
I think we're all on the roller coaster
Yeah.
ride. I think that it's really important that you reach out and talk to somebody, because it's so isolating right now, and
Hmm.
it's one of those things that we really are all going through it. No one in the entire world is have this all figured out, or really knows, or doesn't have a bad day, or isn't struggling at some point. Like, that just doesn't exist.
Hmm. Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
hasn't existed in the
Yeah,
last few
exactly.
months.
Right.
Yeah. So, reach out. I'm happy to chat. I offer free calls to people all the time. I'd be more than happy to chat with anyone individually. But I mean, like I said before, this is a really major time for giving yourself a lot of self-compassion. There were a lot of changes very quickly, and there still is, really. It's still changing quickly, and I
Yeah.
think the closer we get back to school starting, that will continue to change again quite a bit.
Hmm. Hmm.
But compassion is really what's going to get you through this,
Yeah.
and knowing that it's okay if you have a crappy day or crappy days or week. We're all there. We're all feeling that way at some point or another. So asking for help. We may not be able to have babysitters or like house cleaners or those things right now, but we do have friends that are going through similar things, like I said. So reach out and chat with them. Therapists, like I said, are worth their weight in gold. I've also been working with my naturopaths, really up with my supplements to getting me feeling better mentally, which has been a major, major shift for
Hmm.
me. There's lots of options, but just knowing that if you're struggling, it's totally okay. We're all
Hmm.
there. Like I said, no one has it figured out. It's really important to have that compassion and feel your feelings as they come.
Yeah.
And don't go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. No, go ahead, finish. I'm thinking.
Okay. Yeah. So just feel your feelings. I think we have this need in our society to always be positive and always feel gratitude and always do this thing. But that's great to a certain degree. But there's also this thing called positive toxicity. And this is a situation where I feel like we need to be really careful with that, because it's okay to not feel positive and not feel like you can find any gratitude some days in this situation. And it's okay to just sit and cry. And it's really important to cry. We need to move the emotions through our body and not let them get stuck in there. So let those emotions out in a safe way.
Safeway.
Yes.
No, and
Mhm.
compassion is such a compelling word, because it
Mhm.
goes back to what this the whole conversation has been about having compassion for ourselves, not just for everybody else in our life, and kindness for ourselves, and that
Mhm.
love for ourselves, and acknowledging what we're feeling, and being okay with how we're feeling, and at the same time kind of moving forward. And what I mean by that is not getting stuck in if you're not having a great day, that's okay, that's today, or
Yeah.
that's at this moment, but I'm going to end my day on a feeling that brings me joy or lifts me up. And tomorrow's a new day. So that compassion, I mean, can cover so many things. It's a huge word, but it's a very valid, important word to remember. And, you know, as we're coming slowly to a close, Katie, there's always 3 questions that I ask every guest, and it's finding out a part of you that we don't know yet. So that's what makes these questions a lot of fun. So we all have quotes that we absolutely love, and some of us really lead our life by these quotes. Or every now and then they pop up for a reason in our mind. So what's a quote, Katie, that you love and you live by?
Yeah, so, you know, I don't know if this is actually a quote, but it's something that I say often, and I really do live by it and believe in it, and that's slow down to speed up. So when life gets really overwhelming and stressful, you know, we're often trying to figure out how we can get more done in the day and how we can push forward and keep doing more. But actually, it's essential that you take a step back and you stop. Even if it's just for a few minutes, to do that check-in and see what's working and what's not, and how am I feeling, like we talked about before. And, you know, is there something that we could do differently or not at all? Is there somebody I can ask for help? Is there something that we don't need to be doing? You know, if we just keep pushing through and hustling, you're going to hit burnout and you're not going to find the success that you're looking for. So, you know, really having that clarity to help you move forward in the way that you want to, you need to slow down to speed up.
And just with what you said there, you answered the next question, which was going to be, what's the number one advice you could share with our listeners? But you shared your advice with our listeners by, you know, talking about compassion, asking for help, and you know, moving forward. So that brings me to the last question I have. So we know your mom.
Yes.
And you cannot choose your answer to be family. Okay. So if this was the last day of your life, what would you be grateful for?
You know what? The first thing that popped into my mind with this question was the sunshine. We've had such nice weather lately that this has really played a massive role in my mood, and just, you know, even with all this pandemic going on, like, we've been able to get outside in a different way and explore and do different things and enjoy the flowers. We just bought a blow up pool, which has been like amazing. So, you know, really, I just feel like life is good right now, and honestly, we're living our best life. So
Yeah.
I'm happy.
Yeah. The sunshine always lifts our spirits, doesn't it?
Yes.
So, Katie, I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for sharing insight and what you believe in, as far as, you know, really having strong message about self-care and taking care of ourselves and giving ourselves compassion and listening to how we're feeling inside, and giving a voice. So thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
And thank you to all of you for being here and listening. Remember to subscribe and hit the bell for the notification. Whenever I put up a new video, you'll get that notification coming right into your inbox. And as always, when you go to bed tonight, remember, think about the best thing that happened. And when you wake up in the morning, think about gratitude, what you're grateful for. I'm always here to listen. I'm always here to help. Have a wonderful day, and thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.